Hello again. I guess it's a busy afternoon, but it's really cold out, so why not catch up on some of these? This afternoon we're having an Australian wine by Taras Ochota, and his winery is called Ochota Barrels. Now I don't think he's very well known in the U.S., and he represents this whole trend of new style of wines. I know new is overused sometimes, but sort of some of this that took root in France, although it's not that new, and in Australia more recently, making simpler, less extracted, more easily enjoyable wines that are more natural, that reflect the terroir and the grape a little more naturally, if you speak, so less overworked. Taras Ochota, I was turned on to him by the New York Times and Eric Asimov as Collins, and also Besha Rodell, the Australian wine critic, and I just really wanted to try him. I finally got my hands on a few bottles, and this is the first one I'm trying today. He sadly passed away, I think at the end of 2020. He was very young, in his 40s, but he had some genetic autoimmune disease. In any case, it was a very interesting persona, character. He's Ukrainian. His father immigrated from Ukraine to Australia, and he made wine. The grandfather, so he grew up in the wine sort of family, so to speak. He studied wine in Adelaide, enology. He worked in the wine business in France, in California, Hitching Post, and others, names you would recognize. He also worked at Two Hands in Australia, who makes some of the amazing Shiraz that I really like, which is now, which he was rebelling against. That sort of deep, strong, heavily oaked wine that you need to wait a long time for it to come together. And I like it, when you give it the right time. We've done a Two Hands, I think, Bella's Garden together. And I just love these wines. But again, as Asimov says in New York Times, loving the different wines is not exclusive. You can like a whole range of things, and you like them for what they are, not because you want to just have some definition of some sort of standard and nothing else, justified. So it's not like that. This is, and so he started making wines with his wife not too long ago, I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, or less, in the north, in the hills north of Adelaide. Hills, of course, it's a big word for Australia, but they happen to be higher elevation vineyards for Grenache that was kind of spared by the wave of pulling out all these vines in Australia for people wanted to replant with Shiraz and Cabernet. So these Grenache were still left there from the 40s. And he uses a lot of Gamay. He's got a lot of different bottlings. It's very hard to keep track of it all. Not a lot of volume in each one. He picks wines from grapes from different vineyards, and he puts them all in separate barrels. Very neutral barrels. The barrel for him is a vessel. It should not impart any taste. And it gives him a lot of flexibility when he's making his assemblage to see what barrel works with what. So he doesn't want to he says, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket in these big food. So I'll put them in smaller barrels, and they're all separate, and then I decide what goes with what. They pick the grapes early, so they really don't want them to be overripe, and also they really don't want to over extract. So you can see that in the color. We're going to get to that. So they pick them early. Very little involvement. I mean, yes, they'll add sulfites to the bottle. I mean, he's not religious about any of this stuff, but he just wants to make the wine to be as natural and as enjoyable as possible. So he's a 2020 Grenache. It's called the Green Room, and I think it's a blend because he has some other single vineyard Grenaches. So 2020, again, these bottles hit the market pretty quickly. They're not overaged in a cellar somewhere. The color is just incredible, and the color is really sort of light grenadine, makes you think of a Beaujolais Nouveau. And in fact, even on the taste, my friend Francois, who is from a Beaujolais, he grew up in a family of winemakers and vineyard owners, said it reminded him very much of Beaujolais, both in the color, the taste, and the feel. And it turns out that Ochota worked in Beaujolais, and he really admired specifically the Beaujolais style of making sort of low intervention wines, and he tried to replicate that. So it does, I guess, come out a little bit in the taste. Anyway, on the color, on the taste, it's really, just sort of raspberry and grenadine again. I would say a little bit of sweetness, not too much, but just it's kind of some sort of juicy. I don't want to say it because it's a bad thing, but in this case, it's just this is 11% alcohol, so very low alcohol. And again, it comes from picking underripe grapes, I think. It's a really interesting taste. It's not sweet. So again, it comes from the underripeness, I think. It's acidic. It's got that sort of tart fruit component. Very few tannins, so you don't see any of that. You don't feel any of that mouth puckering, lingering, sensation. A little bit of it's kind of a little bubbly. You get that some of these Beaujolais Nouveaux, which I think it is very similar to. And it's just not necessarily a big finish, but it's just a lot of pleasure, really, just when you first come in contact with it. Very enjoyable wine, and you can put it in the fridge and cool it a little bit if you want. Have it on an afternoon in the summer. You can have it in the winter with some, something a little bit more substantial, for dinner. It is representative of a particular style and a particular philosophy. So I think that's how you have to take it, not in some and it's for its own, not comparing it. I like the better than this one. This is really good for what this fellow is trying to make, and it just gives you a sense for what the grape really tastes like coming from that particular vineyard on that hill outside of Italy. Anyway, cheers and see you soon.